regulations for fantasy sports and event wagering contests. Section 7 of the legislation requires the Arizona Department of Gaming to fulfill the requirements of an accelerated rulemaking timeline and exempts the department from the normal rulemaking requirements. We certainly understand that Arizonans are excited of the advent of event wagering and fantasy sports. They've waited a long time. And so the department, in turn, has set an aggressive timetable to go live. Right now, our target is still September 9th, which coincides with the NFL season opener. To put us in the best position to meet our timeline and our deadline and to receive feedback efficiently and effectively, we determined that it made the most sense to come up with a solid draft set of rules and make them available for public inspection and feedback. We also decided that we would not create the rules behind closed doors and, as much as possible, seek the input of the public, stakeholders, and our counterparts in other jurisdictions. Our rule writing team, which is here with me, they've been hard at work to deliver the draft that you've got in front of you for today's discussion. And I understand that normally during the rulemaking process, when rules are published, they're almost in final format. But again, because we're exempted from the normal rulemaking process, you will see significant changes to the rules based off the feedback that we expect to get today, as well as through the written process that we are keeping open until 11:59 on Monday, June 21st. While the department has definitely been interacting with all the other jurisdictions and taking a look at their rules, you'll see that our rules are designed for the Arizona statutory regime that was recently passed by the legislature. So with that, I kind of want to lay out a few ground rules for everybody so we can move through this efficiently and effectively. I just want to remind everyone that we're here to receive comment on the draft rules. This is not the time or the venue to discuss the merits of either the recently signed amended compacts or House Bill 2772. So we're just asking you to keep your comments directly to the rules. If you are not recognized to speak, please keep your mic muted. You'll see kind of the instructions on the slides that are rotating through of how to mute your microphone via Google Meets. If you are not recognized as, and yes, if there gets to be too much crosstalk or if there's disruption, we may have to remove whoever's causing the disruption. So please, as normal, be courteous to everyone that's in the meeting today. So the format for the session today, and if I can have IT go ahead and put up sort of the agenda of how we'd like to break out today. While they're getting the agenda up. So we've kind of broken it down into about four large areas. And we'll plan on taking a break at 10:30 if the meeting goes the full hour, and we'll otherwise, or the full 3 hours. Otherwise, we'll just go until there are no more comments. But again, we plan to end the meeting at 3 hours, and again, the break will be at 1.5 hours. So each speaker will have approximately 2 minutes per topic listed on the agenda. And you can kind of see over there on the right side of the slide the way we're going to break out the agenda. So the first section is going to be the 4 policy issues that we requested feedback on. They are the number of skins, the licensing fees, the privilege fee that book operators will need to pay, and then licensing allocation. Should there be more qualified applicants than available licenses. So we'll allot about 1 hour, 20 minutes on that subject. or those 4 subjects. Then we'll move into issue set number 1. We'll allot about 30 minutes for that issue set. Issue set 2, another 30 minutes, and then issue set 3 will be 30 minutes. And then if there's a balance of time left over, we'll pick up any other issues that maybe we weren't able to cover. If somebody's made a point that you were planning on making and you agree with it, in the interest of time, there's no need to really kind of weigh in on that. If you really want to kind of piggyback on that and say you agree, I recommend that you provide that feedback in writing. But we want to try to offer as many people as possible time to speak today. If we do not address every topic on the agenda today, at Monday's session, we'll pick up where we left off and go through that way. That way, whoever was in today and maybe we weren't able to get to your topic, we'll begin with that on Monday's session. Our goals for the agency, we're here to listen. We want to give those who wish to speak an opportunity to do so. So we're going to kind of keep our comments to a minimum here. We really want to hear from you. And to have the most productive session possible, please refrain from sort of a question and answer format when it's your time to speak. We're still taking written input, and like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be taking written input until 11:59 on Monday, so feel free to provide additional comments there. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started and kind of open up the discussion. Again, please use the raise hand feature if you'd like to make a comment on the policy discussion. IT will call on you, and they'll also let you know when your time is up. If you are joining by phone and you wish to speak, feel free to send an email to publicaffairs, all one word, at azgaming.gov. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Anyone wishing to comment on either the number of skins, licensing fees, the privilege fees, or licensing allocation? Any raised hands?
I don't see any yet.
Okay. Oh, it looks like Liz Matheson has a raised hand.
Yep.
Liz, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and
I apologize. Oh, hold on. I'm giving you a ton of feedback. That should be better. Can you explain the difference between number of skins and licensing allocation? Would there be a consideration for limiting the number of licenses available outside of the operator and management service provider categories?
Oh, I think Director, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, Liz, you were very hard to hear. There was a lot of feedback. Would you mind?
I'll try again. I apologize, but can you explain what the difference is between the number of skins and licensing allocation? Would licensing allocation suggest that aside from operator license, you are intending to somehow limit allocation of licenses to suppliers or ancillary suppliers, any of the other categories?
The limited licenses, so there are 10 licenses that are reserved for the professional sports team and 10 licenses that are reserved for tribes.
Right. So does the licensing allocation issue simply apply to operator licenses?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
We have John Pappas.
Just to help better understand, what is the question on license allocation? Is it is there going to be some sort of a preference given to certain licenses? Is it? I'm just confused as to what is the policy question we are discussing here.
So there are 10 commercial licenses and 10 tribal licenses. There are 22 tribes in the state of Arizona. If all of them wanted to get a license, there would only be 10 available. So how, do you have any input on how the state of Arizona should allocate those? Additionally, there are 10 limited licenses that are available for tracks and OTBs, but certainly more than just 10 in the state. Again, what sort of process would you recommend the state engage in allocating those licenses, provided that there were more qualified applicants than available licenses?
Okay, thank you. That helps clear it up. So the allocation is really in reference to the 10 tribal skins, 10 tribal licenses, pardon me, not the 10 licenses that are reserved for the sports facilities?
Correct, unless we have a boom in professional sports teams here in Arizona.
Go Suns.
All right, thank you, John. Any other comments?
We have Andrew Diss.
Andrew, go ahead and unmute yourself and speak.
Hey, good morning. So under 121, we like the language that you have in A, where it seems like you're going to limit it to one skin based off of who you pick for your management services provider. But I wanted to cite down to C2, where you say that the responsible party shall not terminate your platform provider without written approval from the department. From our perspective, I'm with the Arizona Coyotes, and we see that as a business decision between us and who we partner with. I fully understand needing approval from the department before we begin operating with our partner. But if we need to terminate our relationship with our partner, that should be a decision left up to us and not subject to approval from the Department of Gaming.
Great, thanks, Andrew. I appreciate that. All right, Aaron, any other hands raised?
Yes, we have Dave Author.
All right, Mr. Author.
This is Dave Author with Arizona Downs. The legislation is relatively unclear with respect to the horse tracks, and we had some questions of the group as to are we a limited event wagering operator? Number one, are we intended to have a contract or a deal with one of the sports teams in order to operate as a limited event wagering operator? And how many locations for our sports book are we allowed to have? For instance, do we get one at the track in Prescott Valley? Do we get one at each of our OTBs until we reach a particular number? Or is that what you're still trying to figure out? And I guess that's generally what my questions are.
Okay, I'll try to remember them. But for your first one, yes, the limited wager operators would need to have a deal with one of the either the 10 commercial licensees or the 10 tribal. So you'd have to have that deal in place. There are a total of 10 limited wagering operator licenses. So that's all that are available. And that's one of the allocation questions we have. If we had more qualified applicants for those 10, is there any sort of input you'd like to give us on how those 10 ought to be how they should be allocated?
Well, there are 2 major tracks and 1 minor track in the state. Does that equal 3, or is that? And then there's some, I don't know how many, 40 or more OTB locations throughout the state. Is each one of those? We would suggest that each operator, each track be allocated 10 OTBs as part of their 10 allocations, because it's just 1 license per track. I believe that's what the industry would like to do, although I haven't had an opportunity to speak to the rest of the members. And that would allow us to locate sportsbook in our OTBs. Is that what the legislation suggests? It's just hard to tell.
No, on those limited wager, limited operator licenses, it's 10 total. So 10 total.
10 total locations for sportsbook?
Yes.
So somehow you're suggesting that the 10 locations, so we would start with hypothetically 3, 1 at each track, and then have 7 more divided among the tracks. Is that what you're contemplating?
That is a possible scenario.
Okay. Yeah, we think that's substantially limiting our access to sportsbook, and would object to that. I don't know how we would make such an objection. But secondly, on the deal that we would make with a sports club in order to qualify as a limited event wagering, does that mean a certain percentage of our income has to go to some club who already has a license and is already collecting whatever they're going to collect? In order for us to get in the game, we got to pay a club some more money, or how did you contemplate that would work?
Yeah. Pretty much on that one, we view that as a contract between the limited operator and then one of the master licenses.
Okay. What would motivate a master licensee to contract with us? Is it money, or is it goodwill or friendship, or
so again, Mr. Author, like I mentioned, we're not really here to kind of get into the law that was passed. We're talking about
right.
the rules. So there's this area that I think those who are interested in a limited license, they need to start talking to some of the master licensees.
Okay. And so are there just 3 limited or 3 potential limited event wagering operators in the state?
There are a total of 10 licenses available. So, and they're available to racetracks as well as OTBs.
Okay. Well, the OTBs operate under the OTBs, but I see what you mean. Okay. Or the OTBs operate under the racetracks. Well, there's a lot of confusion, at least in our industry, and I suppose we need to get together and present something in writing to you as to what our position ought to be. So, thanks for your input.
You bet, and please feel free to provide written input as well.
Okay.
All right, we have Amy Lynn Pierce.
All right, Amy Lynn.
Hi, thank you. Amy Lynn Pierce from the Diamondbacks. I just wanted to echo what Andrew from the Coyotes said, that we also are very happy with the language for 121A that limits the number of skins to 1. We wanted to just throw in our support for leaving the skin number the way that it is, just 1 per licensee.
Oh, thank you very much. Any more comments on this section of the agenda?
We have Josh Pearl.
All right, Josh.
Hi, Department of Gaming. We appreciate the opportunity to contribute today. Actually, just on that same rule, our suggestion would be to remove it, and that same rule being R194121. In the event that the department does allow for multiple skins, we believe that the current language would inhibit the tech stack, just due to the fact that an event wagering system includes hardware, software, and firmware. Normally each skin would have its own hardware. For example, a server or software being a player account management system. So we believe that this rule would require the skin partners to change their operating systems in the event that the department does allow for multiple skins.
Okay, great. Thank you, Josh, for that feedback.
We have Andrew Winchell.
All right, Andrew.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Andrew Winchell from FanDuel. We'd like to comment on this rule as well. We strongly support the position of the Coyotes and the Diamondbacks with the single skin, but we would like some clarification because the event wagering platform, as contemplated elsewhere in the rules, is specifically required to receive both the online, the online and retail sports wagers, and technology providers, management services providers, operators may have slightly different or significantly different tech stacks that process their retail wagers separately from their online wagers. So while we do believe it should be one partner, one management services provider, one skin, so to speak, that they should be allowed to utilize different software and hardware solutions to receive retail wagers versus online wagers within that system.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll take that under advisement. Aaron, any other ones with raised hands on this issue?
Yes, we have, sorry, I'm going to mispronounce your name, Taloinia Adams.
All right, Miss Adams. Go ahead and unmute yourself. It should be the microphone kind of in the center part of the lower bar towards the leftmost button.
It actually is an issue with Chrome. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. I just had two questions regarding licensing, license allocation under this issue set. As it relates to a applicant for licensure on the tribal side, presuming there are more than 10 tribes that apply and greater than 10 tribal applicants that submit the licensure fee, if a tribe wanted to withdraw an application, would that still be subject to department approval?
If they were going to withdraw an application, I don't think they would need to let us know, but there is also likely going to be a non-refundable fee associated with that.
And is that non-refundable fee just the full freight of whatever the event wagering operator license is, or is it the application fee?
It's an application fee.
Okay. And we don't know what that the amount of that fee is. Is that correct?
Correct. That's one of the things that we are seeking input on.
Same with more applicants than the maximum allowable licenses on the tribal side. How the proposed language offers nothing as it on that issue as it relates to renewal licensure at the 5-year milestone. Does the department intend to clarify how renewals will work for initial event wager operators that are granted license seeking renewal when demand is greater than the number of licenses available?
Yes. But again, we're seeking input again on those allocation questions, policy issues. So, you know, please feel free to provide some suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
No other hands up right now.
Okay. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next issue set, which concerns internal controls, league data, servers and storage, and geofencing. Do we have any raised hands or anyone wishing to provide comment on those areas?
Yes, we have Andrew Winchell.
All right, Andrew. You might need to unmute yourself.
My apologies. I have multiple comments, so I'll just start with one for the moment, and we can go from there. I think there's language in the draft rules on an official league data requirement, and that is reflected in the legislation, but it's not really spelled out in great level of detail in the legislation. There is a reference, though, to different tiers of bet, tier 1 and tier 2 wagers in the legislation that differentiate, and you can see in other state statutes which we can provide where there's a general consensus language about what types of wagers are subject to official league data requirements and what are not. And it appears in the draft rules, and I'm just trying to pull it up here in front of myself, is that there's not really that acknowledgement in the draft rules as to what types of wagers an operator would have to have official league data for.
Okay.
And so we would seek clarity and the implementation of language that would kind of follow similar tracks as to what's in Michigan or Virginia as to how official league data mandates are imposed.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other hands?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Yes, we have John Pappas.
All right, John, go ahead.
Hello again. Thank you very much. Question on, and this relates to many of the suppliers you've outlined in here. In the definitions, you've created a supplier and an ancillary supplier category, but it's unclear to me as to who would fall into either a supplier or an ancillary supplier. Is there any clarification on that? So that includes data centers as well as geofence providers. So that's why I'm asking at this time.
I'm gonna have Warren Nichols go ahead and take that one.
So, John, what I would suggest is we're sort of an unusual situation here that vendors is the term that's defined in the Act. So that group would fall under the people that are defined in the Act, and then we added these additionals as ancillaries.
Okay, so everybody listed A through M would be an ancillary supplier, including geofence providers, payment providers, data providers, etc.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yep. Bet.
We have Andrew Diss.
All right, Andrew.
Hey, good morning. Andrew Diss with the Coyotes again. Referring to section 119 under league data, we like everything that you have in here. My comment is possibly adding another section, a section E, just to follow up where you guys talk about if the department has approved the request that you make for who you want to get your data feed from, I think you might want to put in a section E that says if a non-official data provider is approved by the department, then it's approved for everyone else, so that every platform operator doesn't have to make a request once that same data feed is already approved for somebody else. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that feedback.
No hands at the moment. We have Andrew Winchell again.
All right.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to come back in the second time. Just because I wanted to point out, in the geolocation section, there's a discussion of requiring annual testing of geolocation for every potential device and connection. With the multitude of potential event devices out there between mobile devices and the unlimited number of potential computer configurations that individuals could have, I'm not sure that this is a possibility to even test, let alone then trying to test every single device against every single potential wireless or cell network that's available.
Okay, great, thank you.
No hands right now.
Okay. I'll go back to Andrew, and just in case he's got anything else on issue set number 1. All right. Issue set going once. Going.
Oh, we have J.R. Loera.
All right, Mr. Loera.
Yes, thank you. I apologize. This is more of an administrative question that you may have already answered. But will these sessions, verbal sessions, the recordings of these sessions be made public for viewing within the next couple of days?
Yes, we are recording these, and then we'll work with IT to make them available.
And in doing so, what website will these be available at?
They would be available at our website, which is azgaming.gov.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
No hands right now.
All right. We're going to go ahead and move on to issue set number 2, which contains systems and platforms, integrity and security assessments, events and wagers, as well as player accounts. So go ahead and open up the floor if anyone has any comment on that.
We have Andrew Winchell.
All right, Andrew.
Yeah, I just want to step in. The first one on wagers and events. There's language in here in both the retail and online portions about patrons being able to void tickets prior to the start of the event. And it seems to give patrons a unilateral right to void, which is not something that is done in event wagering. I believe that this is something that is done in horse race wagering and is often available to customers. But that's an acknowledgement in pari-mutuel horse racing that the odds are constantly changing and that a customer enters at one set of odds may want to exit their wager prior to it, and void it prior to the start of the race because the odds have changed. Whereas in fixed odds wagering, which is what we're here with, is the general presumption is you are locked in, good or bad, no matter what changes happen before the start of the event. So we would want to see the rule reference I have here is Rule 19.4.134 N, where if a patron wishes to void a ticket written prior to the event, and there's also the same reference in 19.4.135 K.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Yep, and just also in relation to those to nearby pieces for those two sections, there's a presumption that all tickets shall be considered final at the start of the event, and that's for both of them. We have a question in relation to that. Obviously, the Act with the definitions of Tier 1 and Tier 2 wagering recognize the offering of what's called in-play wagering while an event is going on, and this would appear to prevent customers from engaging in event wagering after the start of the event, because all tickets are considered to be final at the start of the event. So we would suggest removing that line from both of these provisions, from both 19.4.134M and 19.4.135J.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, that's not our intention to limit in-play wagering. So thank you for that insight.
No hands at the moment.
Okay.
We have Andrew Diss.
All right, Andrew.
Hi, we're doing the Andrews back to back every time.
You guys are frequent flyers.
Under the integrity section for 105 under procedures for licensing C, you refer to responsible parties shall provide the department for anybody who directly impacts the integrity of the game. I want to understand more clearly what you mean by a responsible party. So let's say us as the Coyotes, we partner with somebody else to run our book. Is it your expectation that the Coyotes are also going to have to submit a list of anybody that can impact the integrity of the game? Because for a franchise, you know, I mean, that could start with ownership, head coach, all the way down to trainers on the team. I just want to clarify if you're just trying to capture who our partner is, who's actually operating sports wagering, or whether you're trying to capture some people on the teams as well.
So Andrew, it's a defined term, but I'm going to go ahead and have Warren Nichols maybe try to provide some additional clarity.
So Andrew, the point of this particular rule is it would be employees of the operator. So not of the Coyotes, but of either of your partner, or if you're operating directly just on the sportsbook side. So it would be a way for the department to make sure that any employee who should be licensed under the guidelines we've set is not missed.
Okay, I understood. We're good with that then. Thank you.
Yep. Great, thank you.
Currently no hands.
Okay.
Oh, we have Andrew Winchell again.
All right, Andrews. It's the Andrews.
Yeah, I'm sorry to keep making it an Andrew sandwich here, but the one of the things that we'd like to point out is in relation to the payment of winning tickets, both on the retail side and on the online side, and these are in rules 19.4.134C, and I don't have the other rule reference here. I apologize, but it was in our written comments, where there's a requirement that winning tickets shall be immediately payable to the patron, and for retail, and then in online it would be immediately deposited to the player's account. We obviously want to pay every winning wager as soon as humanly possible after the event, but there are obviously reasons, elsewhere contemplated in the rules to prevent fraud and anti-money laundering concerns. And obviously, if there's a requirement, if they hit the W2G reporting requirements, then there's requirements under the statute that we do checks to see if the customer has a debt set-off reason. So we would suggest changes that these payments shall be made in accordance with the responsible parties' approved internal controls. This way, we're following whatever required procedures we must before actually paying out the ticket that may be required by statute, regulation, or both.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Any other issue or any other comments on?
Yes, we have John Pappas.
All right, John.
Thank you again. I have a question on R19-4-131, forms of payment for event wagers. The credit is not listed as an acceptable form of payment. And I'm wondering if it was omitted for a reason. I did not see anything in the statute that prevents credit, and didn't know if that was a standard already in Arizona gaming facilities to prohibit credit as a form of payment.
Okay, yeah, we thank you for that. We did have in there, though, other forms of payment maybe utilized, but we'll go back and take a look at that.
Okay, our advice would be to add payment back into or distinctly identify credit as a form of acceptable payment.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Currently no hand. Oh, we have Ernest Matthews.
All right, Mr. Matthews. You might need to unmute
Yeah,
yourself.
I'm back on. I'm at the airport. I was trying to keep the sound down. I apologize for joining late. You may have already dealt with this issue. As I was reviewing the rules, there was a provision for retail that it required a minimum of 90 days notice to show the layout of where you want to put the sports betting. And I know there's a September the 9th opening time frame that everyone's looking for, and that 90-day period for the startup would push that out just a bit. Is that going to be modified for the startup? Will it be before that, or is it still going to be a minimum of 90 days to show your layout of the retail facility?
Mr. Matthews, certainly with the startup, we're not going to have that effect. You know, we're going to work with people to get up and running. That's for the future. So we're not going to have anything to hamstring. And just for the record, would you mind letting me know who you're with?
I'm working with Arizona Downs.
Perfect. All right. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Currently no hands.
So issue set number 2, going once.
We have Andrew Winchell.
All right. Andrew.
Sorry, last one, just because it was talked about with payments. We'd like clarification. I think it's for the online account. When the rule appears to require online wagers to be placed using credit cards, or sorry, debit cards and other forms of payments that are listed out in the rule. And obviously we would agree with wanting to keep credit cards in there, but it looks like it has to be placed using that device. We want clarity that those forms of payment are used to fund a player account from which the player account is then used online to place the wager. I think it's a distinction that needs to be clarified to make sure that we don't have the requirement that you directly use the credit card to place each individual wager.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that.
We have Rhea Loney.
Hello. Penn Sports Interactive. One comment on player account maintenance, and this is Rule 19.4-140. One of the things in the proposed rule language was around providing notice to the patron of the nature of an investigation of a player's account. And one of the comments is there might be times where we actually don't want the patron to know that we're investigating something if it rises to the level of a suspicious activity report. And we actually would not disclose that to the patron. So one of the comments was, to remove that provision, and then subsequently that sometimes an investigation, say for multi-accounting or fraud, can take quite some time, and that we would notify the department when we were complete with the investigation, just so that we're not telling you, hi, we're doing an investigation, and then, provide you information, then have to supplement it a week or two down the road.
Hey, Rhea, I think we just as soon ask some of these questions as opposed to guess for ourselves. But in these scenarios, we had a little bit of trouble sort of theorizing this one. If you don't pay a player and you don't tell them that there is some reason that you're not, what is the notification that you're going to give them or reason that they're not being paid? If it's not to tell them that they're being paid, it'd be an investigation.
So for this scenario, I would say that, and this is where they'll be allowed to withdraw the funds maintained on their player account. So it might be a scenario where we're having to verify a player's identity. And so say that we started to verify the identity of a player, and that we went through that process and we found out that this particular player, maybe there's a fraudulent issue there. It could be a stolen identity or something like that. And then let's just say we continue to look at that and we see that it's tied to other players. we might say, hi, your withdrawal is being processed, it's under review. But if we think that this is rising to the level of a suspicious activity report that needs to be filed, we would not tell the player that. And so, until we were complete and we told the division what our result was of it, we wouldn't indicate to the player, necessarily that, hi, we're investigating you for a suspicious activity report under federal BSA guidelines. That might be why.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And happy if you have any follow-up questions, or if anyone else has any other good examples that they could provide on that.
Okay, we have Talanya Adams.
Thank you. I had a question. Well, actually, just a comment, unless you feel so inclined, on R19-4-136 entitled Layoff Wagers. I think it would be helpful if the department could define a layoff wager in the rule. And second, subsection B of that section indicates that layoff wagers are not part of the computation for adjusted gross event wagering revenue. And the question there is with R19-4-114, fees for operating, subsection B, has the department provided, or is the calculation of adjusted gross event wagering receipts available? Is that format that the department is going to create under subsection B available now?
That's in the statute. Oh. Okay. Yeah, we don't have that sheet yet. We will develop it though.
Okay. The enacted language in statute does not contemplate, or it's just silent on this issue of layoff wager or threat mitigation. And so I think it would be helpful to have that defined in rule.
Okay, great. Thank you for the input.
Currently no hands raised.
Okay.
Oh, we have Andrew Winchell.
All right, Andrew.
Yes, sorry to keep jumping in on things.
Oh, don't apologize.
A couple rules in relation, and because it was just spurred on by Rhea, about both patron withdrawing of funds and the dormancy of a player account. So rule reference R19-4-140B1 provides that the responsible party shall honor a patron request to withdraw funds within 5 days of the request. We believe that that should be potentially extended to 5 business days to acknowledge that there are times of the year where there may be holidays that limit the ability of operations to get that process in a timely manner, especially if there are AML or other fraud concerns that are being reviewed before the patron is being allowed to withdraw the funds. But the bigger issue is we'd like language added to clarify that the honoring of that request is honored when the responsible party completes the processing of the request. Thus, no delays by payment processors or credit card issuer or whatever is not counted towards that 5-day clock, to make sure that we're not told for the fact that someone's payment processor or the ACH system or whatnot does not transmit the funds to them in a timely manner. Okay,
great. Thank you for the input. I just direct you to R19-4-157, the calculation of time. We intend business days, but I understand that you're seeking further clarity.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And then on the dormant player account, Rule 19-4-140C, it has a 2-year time for players' accounts to be declared dormant. In most other jurisdictions, including Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, it's a 3-year dormancy. And because players may be going across different jurisdictions, accepting different terms and services, we would like as best possible to have a unified player experience, and thus allow them to have it be a 3-year dormancy.
Okay, great. That's helpful. Thank you. All right.
Hands raised.
I'm sorry, Aaron, I stepped on.
I said, yeah, currently no hands raised.
Okay, we'll go ahead and if there's no more hands raised for issue set number 2, we'll move on to issue set number 3, which is promotions and bonuses, accounting and auditing, patron disputes, the debt set-off, as well as any sort of miscellaneous items. So we'll go ahead and open up the floor on issue set 3.
We have Andrew Winchell.
All right, Andrew.
Yes, on the auditing specifically, we've not seen this level of detail in sportsbook requirements. I don't think in any other jurisdiction where it appears to require daily audits of individual wagers. So we would we suggest significant edits to the daily audit requirements that we've included in our comments. So I'm not going to go through them here, but basically a complete up to bottom rewriting of that section.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Currently no hands.
Okay.
We have Ray Aloni.
All right, Ray.
Hello, I will also add on to the auditing. One of the things on the technical side, the rule also already contemplates the technical audit that the Bulletproof will complete annually. So one thing is if you do, continue to include sort of an annual audit of the rules in the act, that we're already doing that on the technical side, so that could be separate and doesn't need to be done again, because it would be duplicative and it would be expensive for that to be done as well.
Okay, great. Thank you for that input.
And I think that I've provided some commentary on this, but a yearly audit on all the rules might be actually difficult, whether it's internal or external. And so, maybe some other cadence of, at your request, or maybe every 3 years or 5 years if you wanted that, just to provide a little bit of optionality, as, audits can be very time consuming and also costly. And, just it touches so many areas of the sportsbook.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Currently no hands. We have Andrew Diss.
All right, Andrew.
Hey guys, so this would be under miscellaneous. I want to make sure that there are confidentiality protections. You guys might have them in other parts of ADG regs, but I think it might be important to include it within the event wagering regs itself. We have no issue with sharing all the information and our partners sharing all the information with the department that we need to, but some of that is going to be very sensitive information that we don't think should be shared publicly. So we want to ensure that there are some confidentiality protections included within the regs themselves. And then the only other thing that I have also miscellaneous is, we're shooting for a September 9th start date. And, the way I read this, you guys are going to have to conduct background licensing investigations basically on 4 different entities. Your event wagering operators, your limited event operators, your management service providers, and then your suppliers. And it just strikes me that that's a lot of people to do due diligence on and to make sure that they're going to be credible operators. And I want to make sure that everybody is able to start at the same time on day one, rather than have a staggered start because you guys haven't finished some investigations. So I don't know if you're able to give us some assurances, but if us and our partner have applied within the timeline, we just don't want to be left behind and have people be able to start operating prior to us.
Okay, great. And then on the confidentiality, there is reference to that in the statute. So I just kind of wanted to direct your attention there. If there's, you want to check that and see if that's sufficient or.
Okay, we have next up is Sally's.
Yes. Good morning. This is Senator Gonzalez, and I have a couple of questions. And just to follow up with Mr. Disk's questions on approval and licenses, I also think that it's a short time on trying to get all of this together. I certainly think that everybody should start on the same page, but my concern is more on the public's knowledge of this. And when I see that on my computer it says that you currently have 92 people on this call, and to me that is a small, very small audience. Hopefully, I know you're having some more, another one tomorrow on this discussion, but I would request that and I also read that the department is only giving the public until midnight on Monday to submit comments, and to me that's a very short period for them, for the general public, maybe not for the industry, because they're on top of this, because that's their business. But I'm concerned with the public, and that they have more time to review the rules and make comment. And so I would request that you give them more time to be able to comment on all of these new rules that the department is going to implement for the state of Arizona in this new gaming, commercial gaming portion in Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gonzalez, for your input. I just kind of state that the law as passed directs the department to actually create the rules in 60 days and get moving. So we're limited by statute on time.
But you could give the public more than the time that you're given. You could give them at least until the end of next week on Friday, a week from today. That wouldn't hinder you starting on time.
Well, thank you for your input. We appreciate it.
All right, next we have Amy Lynn Pierce.
All right, Ms. Pierce.
Thank you. Amy Lynn Pierce from the Diamondbacks. I also wanted to comment on the start, that it would be our desire for everybody to start at the same time, recognizing that you all have a lot of work to do and being mindful of that. Suggesting that maybe many of these operators do work in many other states. And so if there's some sort of provisional licensing that would allow us all to get started at the same time, reciprocity, something like that, obviously that's up to you, but it would definitely be our desire that as long as everyone was had applied by the deadline, that we would all start at the same time.
Ms. Pierce, just and for the group, that our intent is to set it up like that, in the sense that if you've applied by a certain time frame with the department, we'll make sure that, provided there's no sort of derogatory information, that folks will be able to go live by that September 9th time frame. We didn't want to create a situation where there was maybe one or two stragglers that was holding everybody back. So that's sort of our intent. We're going to take in all this feedback we're getting. We're going to amend the rules, and then we will come up with a revised timeline. But at this time, it's still our intent to have the first go live by September 9th.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
Next up is Talanya Adams.
All right, Ms. Adams.
Thank you again. I was curious to know if it is that the temporary license that the department rule R19 or -4-105J speaks to?
So that one's only for a limited. for employees and suppliers.
Okay. Second question, and just kind of, or comment, and just more broadly again on this, the issues. I think it'd be helpful to have, I read, and please correct me if I'm wrong, barred person to be different than a self-precluded person under R19-4 154 and 155 respectively. Barred persons is not defined in statute. And so it would be helpful, my comment is it would be helpful to define barred persons and to clarify as to whether or not that would include individuals that are barred from retail event wagering based upon conduct on Indian lands.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Kevin Cochran.
Kevin.
Hey everyone, can you guys hear me?
Yes, and just again for the record, first name, last name, and who you represent.
Sure, Kevin Cochran with DraftKings.
All right, proceed.
We did submit comments previously, but we just wanted to touch on the designee licensing structure. We just wanted to reiterate that it was our belief after reading the statute that the designee would actually just be an event wagering operator. So it's someone that was qualified to hold an event wagering operator license, and then someone acting as their designee. And we just wanted to point out that it looks like the regulatory structure in the draft rules sets up designees as having their own specific license. And that could be sort of problematic in a few different areas, but you know, some of the teams may not be actually able to hold that top level license, and we kind of believe that it conflicts with the statutory intent. So we just wanted to raise your guys' attention to that and just ask you to please consider that when you're making the next round of drafts.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Next up is Andrew Winchell.
Andrew.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to echo the comments that Kevin just made, and also get into a discussion just quickly about supplier licensing. I know it was touched on briefly before, but since we're in the miscellaneous section, I figured to point it out. There's supplier is a defined term in the statute, and it is strictly limited to who would qualify or would be required for licensing as a supplier. And we think that that should be acknowledged in the rule language to basically put that as a test to say that there is a list out of all these potential suppliers or vendors, but that those individuals are only required for licensure as a supplier if they satisfy the definition of supplier in the Act as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Currently no hands raised. We have Ernest Matthews.
Yes, let me pull up the document. Under section R19-4-104D that deals with limited event wagering operator that would have a retail operation. What does it mean under, let's say, a limited event wagering operator that holds a permit issued by the Department Division of Racing to provide services at a racetrack enclosure may submit a supplement to the application on file? What's the process on that? Is the application the racing application with the department, with the Division of Racing, or is that the filing on the sports betting side, and there's a supplemental form that's going to be available to, I guess, accelerate that process for someone that's already licensed by the Division of Racing?
Yes, that's our intent. We've already got some, a lot of information on those licensees. So we would provide a supplement for any additional information that the department wants. It's trying to lessen the administrative burden.
Okay, so I'm sorry about this background noise. So is there a supplemental form that will be produced by your department
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
No current hands raised.
Okay.
Oh, we have Andrew Winchell.
All right, Andrew.
Thank you. Another licensing piece that is referenced in here is on employee licensing. I just want to point out rule reference 19.4.104A. There's a requirement that event wagering employees shall have a department before commencing employment. And in relation to many employees of multi-state operators, they obviously will already have been hired by the state operator, as well as obviously there may be employees who are transferred from existing roles in a tribal gaming operation to sports wagering. So they already may be hired by their employer at the time that they're filing their license request in Arizona. So we suggest that be updated to before performing duties which require licensing.
Okay.
And then a rule reference 19.4.104F2, there's a requirement to provide monthly lists from responsible parties of the name and address of all of our suppliers. Since most of them many of them won't change month to month. Not sure what the value of this is, as opposed to maybe doing something when there's a change in suppliers, or putting it on a supplier who is licensed to list the parties that they provide services to. But it kind of just feels like there could be a repetition of the same list over and over again on a pretty regular basis.
Okay, great. Thank you for that input.
Next up is Senator Gonzalez.
All right, Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you. My question, again, Senator Gonzalez, representing Legislative District 3. My question is, will there be an opportunity for public comment after your license fees are published?
Yeah, our intent is once we've made the incorporation and put in these policy issues, we'll put it back out for public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Next up is John Pappas.
First, I want to go on the record and say I think Andrew Winchell has gone over his 2-minute allotment, but
it was per subject.
I do have a question again on the ancillary suppliers. There is language in the rule that suggests that ancillary supplier requirements could be waived at the discretion of the commission or the department. What will be the determining factors on that, and how would, if a ancillary supplier didn't want to be licensed, how would they go about making that recommendation? Or if they did want to be licensed, how would they go about making that recommendation? So I'm looking at R 19-4-104, section F. 1, the department may waive the requirement that an ancillary suppliers be licensed if it's in the sole discretion that determines that licensing the ancillary supplier is not necessary to protect the public interest.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of left to the discretion of the department. It's not, it's not an all-encompassing list we've got here. And again, we're trying to lessen the administrative burden where possible.
Okay, understandable. Some of the providers on this list are typically licensed as suppliers. Geofencing, for instance. I don't know of a jurisdiction in the U.S. that doesn't license them as a supplier. So we just want to ensure that if there is going to be a waiver of licensure, that's notified, and so potential suppliers would know of that waiver. Yeah, we don't
disagree. There were some unique things in the statute that kind of that definitely affected how the rules were drafted.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Currently no hands raised.
Okay, any last issues on issue set 3, or we can go back, was there anything else on any of sort of the 4 parts that anyone would like to bring up?
We have Andrew Winchell.
All right, Andrew.
Of course, it's me. And I apologize to John for doing the different subjects. The point that there's another point that we want to make. In rule reference 19.4.135H, provides that responsible parties are not able to unilaterally cancel any wager without prior written approval from the department. But then there is an earlier section, a later section, then is subdivision I, which immediately follows, which allows responsible parties to cancel wagers for obvious error. So we would want an acknowledgement in H that except for cancellations pursuant to subdivision I, you are not able to unilaterally cancel, but you are able to unilaterally cancel for obvious error.
Okay. Thank you for that input.
No other hands raised right now.
Okay. Any last minute comments on any of the issues that we've covered today?
We have Talanya Adams.
All right, Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Talanya Adams, Policy Advisor at the Arizona Senate. I just wanted to, back to the definitions section,
Okay.
under R19-4-101, I would, my comment would be that under subsection B7, event wager, the definition of event wager be clarified to exclude high school athletes, congruent with the legislation, and then also on R19-4-156 subsection F, in the debt set off language, that language mirror the enacted legislation under the 2021 Gaming Act to reflect the funds are to be remitted directly to the agencies for which the obligation is owed. And then lastly, I had just a curious commentary that I can take offline or put in writing around the department revising the fee, that within 60 days or by giving 60 days notice of any of the fees can be modified. I just would be curious to clarify. I presume that would include the event wagering operator license fee. Would it also include the method by which the fee was determined? So there had been a lot of commentary around auctions or using formats which might yield the greatest dollar within the limitations of the legislation for the public benefit. Would this section, subsection I, in R19-4-105, presume that the department could change its method other than just setting an established fee in rule, the method by which maybe the fee could be determined at market rate or by some other means? Is that anticipated, or should it just be read at face value to be the fees that are outlined or will be outlined in subsection I?
Yeah, I would read it at face value, and then I would just kind of remind folks that The legislation that gives the department a 1-year exemption from the rulemaking process, so that takes us to April 15, 2022. So if, as we're going through this, we find that there needs to be further changes, even once we're up and live, we will be able to make those changes before the rules go final in April 15, 2022.
All right. Next up is Josh Pearl.
All right, Josh.
Hi,
Again,
Josh Pearl. I'm sorry?
I was just going to say, Josh, I don't remember if the first time you spoke, whether or not you said for the record who you represent, if you wouldn't mind doing that.
I did not. Penn Interactive, online subsidiary of Penn National Gaming.
Great, thank you.
With respect to R19-4-115 technical standards, our recommendation would be to remove the requirement for GLI 26 and 27. Those are older standards that are encompassed within GLI 33 version 1.1. Obviously, GLI 20 is applicable to kiosks, but that is our recommendation. And that would be in line with what's seen in other states.
Okay, great. Thank you for that input.
Currently, no other hands.
All right, last call. Any comments on anything that we've covered today in the agenda? All right, I would like to thank everyone who participated today. You made it very efficient. We appreciate your comments. Again, written comments will be taken until 11:59 p.m. on Monday, June 21st. We are going to have a session on fantasy sports this afternoon, and then fantasy sports again on Monday morning, and then another session on event wagering. The format for these meetings are essentially the same. You're welcome to attend any or all of the future meetings, but on behalf of the department, we really appreciate your participation today. And like I said, we're going to go through this information. We already are. And as soon as possible, we will come up with a revised timeline. But generally speaking, our target is to have the rules finalized and out for early July. And again, we're still targeting September 9th for our go live date in the state. So thank you for your participation. And we look forward to interacting with you in the future.